Welcome back to the Dragon's Lair, everybody. My name is Wade, and this is my show Stranger Than Fiction, where I talk about scary, spooky, strange, sometimes paranormal, sometimes supernatural things. It's time. It's time that I finally talk about this topic, which I think is just wonderful, and that is the moon. Now, the moon is crazy. Um, I do want to preface this. I'm immediately going to not talk about some topics. So I'm not going to talk about whether you think that the moon landing was fake or not. I'm not going to talk about whether there are structures, pyramids, soul cubes, soul recyclers, buildings, cities, whatever on the surface of the moon. I'm not talking about that. I'm not going to talk about ancient cultures that claim that they existed before the moon was in the sky. We're not. Those are all things that some people believe, but that's not what I want to talk about for my moon video. I want to talk about sciencey stuff, stuff that we've observed, and stuff that we know. And I think without all of the photos that might be fake and the stories of ancient people and all the other things, there's enough there that you can look at it and say there's something weird going on, and what's up with that. If you want to get into all those other things, that's really cool, but I don't want to talk about that for my video. Um, so first and foremost, let's talk about why the moon is unusual. It's unusual for a bunch of reasons. For example, um, as far as we can tell, as far as we understand, every planet that has a moon, the center of gravity for that moon is in the planet. So the moon's center of gravity would be in our planet, and that causes a wobble in the rotation. Our moon does not have a rotation like that. Our moon's rotation is almost perfectly circular, and that is extremely rare. We have observed it, but that is extremely rare. Most things that orbit other things have a wobble, and ours doesn't. Just like our moon is locked, so it does not spin like we spin. It goes around us, but it doesn't spin like we spin. So what I mean by that is when you look at the moon, you are always looking at the same face. Like always, always, always looking at the same face. That's why there is this thing called the dark side of the moon. So the same face of the sun is always the same face of the moon is always facing the sun, is always facing us. We have observed that in other places, but it is pretty rare. Um, the distance of our moon to our planet is unheard of. So, no other celestial body that we have observed has a moon uh, the same size. What I mean is by proportion. So, our moon is roughly 25% of our planet, and there is no other planet that has a moon that is that big, that is that close. There are other planets that have moons that are big, but none of them are as close as ours is. And almost none of them are the size. So ours is 25% of our planet. Everyone else's moons are much smaller than their planet, um, which is crazy. It's also crazy that the density of the moon does not seem to match for it being made out of rock and not being made out of gas or whatever. So for it being 25% of our planet, it is only 1% of our density. And we're relating, right? These percentages to each other. So it should be far more dense than what it is, and it's just not. Um, Another thing that's weird is when you go to the surface of the moon and you dig down and you bring up rocks, the material on the surface is older than the material under it, which only makes sense when you excavate. Um, just like moon craters all seem to be right about the same depth, but they're different widths. Now you'd think if a rock struck the moon, depending on its size and velocity and things like that, it would go deeper. All moon craters are roughly the same size, and I encourage you to look into this stuff. Um, there's the thing about uranium 236 and Neptunium 237. Those do not occur in nature. We've been able to synthesize them, but they do not occur in nature. But they're found on the moon. Just like titanium, chromium, and zircon, those are some of the rarest metals on Earth. They're some of the strongest, toughest, durable materials that we know about, and they are abundantly on the moon. So that what those two things right there that I just talked about really throw out some of the moon creation theory, which is it came from parts of our planet or something smashed into us and then stuff got thrown up in the sky and then got caught in our gravitation. It's not made of the same stuff as we're made out of, our planet. Um, there's just so many crazy things like there isn't an atmosphere on the moon, but there was an atmosphere once that formed for about 14 hours. And what I mean by that is there was like an oxygen mist on the surface of the moon in certain craters in certain places, but it dissipated after 14 hours. Um, Moon rocks, if you use the same dating that we use on Earth for when we date rocks and things like that, the moon is horrifically, titanically older than the Earth is if you use that as a measurement. Um, Apollo 12 and Apollo 13 both performed an experiment where they crashed part of the lander into the moon and the moon reverberated. The first one, it was a smaller object that they crashed. It reverberated for an hour. The second one, it reverberated for 3 hours. And the sound waves got faster closer to the core, and that's like 40 miles down. If it was more dense, then it would slow down like it does on Earth. But it didn't. It sped up, almost like it's hollow. Now, I'm not saying that it's completely hollow. I'm not saying that it's a spaceship. I'm not one of those people that believes those things. But what I'm saying is the moon is crazy and does weird things that you would not expect it to do. 1971, March 7th was when that cloud of vapor formed, and it was over 100 miles square. Um, there's a crater named Pluto that has documented glowing mist 6 times over the last 100 years. And between 1540 and 1967, there's been 570 light flashes that could not be explained. Now, there are other light flashes that could be explained by like glassy surfaces and ice and reflection off of metal and things like that. Those things have been explained. But there is so much of this happening, there's actually a word for it. It's a TLP, it's a transient lunar phenomenon, and they're actually pretty common. So here I've got a map of the moon, and here is the map of all the known TLPs that we have. And like I said, these 570 light flashes are the ones that cannot be explained. So there's more that were explained. You know, why haven't we gone back to the moon? If there's all this titanium and chromium and zirconium up there, why aren't we up there mining it, taking it? I know there's all sorts of politics and blah 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 involved. There's a crater named Aristotle, and there has been consistently a strange blue light that appears in the crater named Aristotle, and it's appeared off and on for the last 10 years. It's probably been going longer than that, but we just haven't noticed it. But the fact is, it is consistent, it is the same color, and it appears. If you were to watch Aristotle, you would see it. Um, you know, when the astronauts returned from the moon, which I believe they did, they don't seem excited. They don't seem like intrepid explorers. They don't seem like victorious heroes. Go ahead and watch that video. They seem like they're upset. They seem like they're sad. I just think altogether the moon has a lot of questions that science doesn't make sense. There's all these quotes from NASA scientists that say it's more logical to conclude that we're observing it wrong, that it's not actually there, and that it's something completely altogether different because it doesn't fit any of the models, it doesn't fit any of the theories, it continues to defy what we understand. Now, saying all that, I'm not saying that there's moon aliens. I'm not saying anything that strange or weird. I'm saying that there's a lot of questions, and I love it. The mystery of the moon. I love the mystery of the moon. We want to say thank you for spending your time here with us at the Dragon's Lair.